Today, we break down the preliminary rosters for the three favorites to win the 2025 World Junior Championships.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. My name is Sebastian High. I'm the USHL scout over at Elite Prospects, usually joined by Hadi Kalakesh, the CUM JHL scout at Elite Prospects. And today, we have another exciting episode here for you in store because we'll be breaking down the preliminary World Junior Championship rosters for Canada, the USA, and Sweden, the three favorites to win the tournament this season. Of course, there are other teams as well that will be coming out with their rosters in the coming days and weeks as well, and we will keep you posted on that front. We'll do another follow-up next week with the other rosters that are coming out for this tournament. But today we have the three big fish, truly the favorites for this year's tournament. But before we jump into the episode, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So let's jump into the Team Canada preliminary roster here because it's a bit controversial as of yet. There were some decisions made here, of course. I mean, there's always decisions to be made. There's always players that don't crack a lineup that many fans think should, and vice versa. But I would say it's perhaps a bit more than usual with this year's Team Canada roster. In goal, there are four goaltenders that have been invited. Three of them will make the final roster. Those four names are Carson Bjarnason, Carter George, Jack Ivankovic, and Scott Ratzlaff. One surprise here to me personally is that Ivankovic was brought instead of Joshua Ravensbergen of the WHL, who is a bigger, equally intelligent and mobile and athletic goaltender. And I'm a very big fan of Jack Ivankovic. I think he's a fantastic player and definitely think he deserves a shot at this roster. It just was a bit of a surprise for me that they decided to snuff on Ravensbergen, who is by consensus, the top draft-eligible goaltender this season. Just like Jack Ivankovic is probably like he's second on my board of goaltenders this year, and I think that in general he kind of falls in that 2 to 5 range in goaltending rankings. But Carson Bjarnason was a second-round draft pick of the Philadelphia Flyers just over a year ago. He plays for the Brandon Wheat Kings in the WHL, and he's been fantastic this season. He's probably the favorite to be the starter this year. I think he'll be certainly in competition with Scott Ratzlaff of the Seattle Thunderbirds in the WHL, who was a fifth-round draft selection by the Buffalo Sabres in that same 2023 draft. And they are joined by Carter George, who went in the second round at 57th overall to the LA Kings in 2024. So just this past draft. He's a Thunder Bay native, and he plays for the Owen Sound Attack in the OHL. He's also a really good goaltender. I think with these four players, you're probably expecting Bjarnason to be the starter, and I can see either of Ratzlaff and George also getting into some games in this tournament. On the blue line, there are some interesting players here. First, we have Cameron Allen of the Guelph Storm, a 6-foot, 196-pound right shot defenseman who got picked in the 5th round by the Washington Capitals in 2023. And he cracked this roster ahead of players like Zayne Parekh and Carter Yakimchuk. So you have these two top 10 draft selections from 2024 that were left out in favor of Washington's 5th round draft selection from the year prior. This is not a decision I personally would have made by any extent. I think Cameron Allen could be fine in a bottom pairing role. And I guess he's a bit more of a two-way presence, but I think that mainly comes in the fact that he's a lot less dynamic offensively rather than he's better defensively than players like Zayne Parekh, especially. I think with Carter Yakimchuk, there definitely are some defensive woes there, but either of those players would have cracked my personal defensive lineup here. So that was an interesting thing. Let me know in the comments what you think of that decision in particular, because they are all right shot defensemen. It was a choice. Then we have Bo Akey of the Barrie Colts in the OHL and Edmonton draft selection. He's fantastic. He's a mobile left shot defenseman, really good transition defender, high end skater. I think he's fantastic for like a bottom pairing puck moving role on this team. Oliver Bonk has a really heavy shot. He plays physically. He plays aggressively. He can make mistakes, and when he makes a mistake, it can be a bit difficult to catch back up to the play if the opponent can get around him. But overall, solid player, especially in his final year of eligibility for this tournament. I think he is more than worth an invite. Harrison Brunick has been fantastic ever since being drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins at 44th overall this past June. He's a mobile, fantastic transition defender as well as a right shot defenseman, 6'3", 191 pounds, some fantastic handling skill in there as well. He plays for Kamloops in the WHL, and I think that if he ends up being the third right shot defenseman in this lineup, Canada is in a really good spot. Sam Dickinson, of course, is also invited. He is going to be fantastic on this team. He is, I believe, third in the OHL in points among all players, not just defensemen. He's been fantastic offensively for the London Knights this season. Come at a bit of a cost defensively. He's really trying to develop that offensive side of his game this year, but he's big, he's physical, he's built like an NHL player already. And while he has some miscues and not every decision is fantastic, the tools are elite. The offensive instincts have come a long way in the last year as well. He's going to be great for Team Canada. Andrew Gibson is a heavy 6'4" right shot defenseman, a Detroit Red Wings second round pick in 2023. He can be solid. Tanner Malendic is a mobile, again, good transition defender. There's a theme here on the left side of defense for Team Canada, and he plays for Saskatoon in the WHL and was a first-round selection by the Nashville Predators in 2023. Sawyer Mineo, Vancouver selection, is also on this invite lineup, as is Caden Price of the Seattle Kraken, and Matthew Schaefer, the 2025 draft eligible, is our second draft eligible on this lineup after Jack Ivankovic. Schaefer is fantastic. He has a real shot at a top 1 selection this draft class. He's an elite level defenseman. I think that he should make this roster, and he will be among the better blue liners on it. Then the forward core. We're going to go on a quick fire here because we have to talk about some of the other snubs in this lineup, because there are a couple interesting ones here. So Denver Barkey, really high-octane, pacey, undersized forward, plays for the London Knights, is a Philadelphia Flyers draft pick. He is fantastic in terms of bringing energy to the lineup, but also a good base of skill in a depth role. Cole Baudouin could be the perfect fourth-line centerman for this team. First-round pick by the Utah Hockey Club. Really physical, great net front, very simple meat and potato style play, but he does that at a really high degree. Mathieu Catafal of the Vegas Golden Knights is a really good, intense player, and I think that he is a really good fit again for a bottom 6 capacity in this lineup. Berkeley Catton brings a bunch of skill. He was his 8th overall selection by the Seattle Kraken in 2024. Bit undersized at 5'10", 170, but overall he is a machine with the puck on a stick, elite in transition, great handling, great skating. Easton Cowan, I mean, I don't think I need to make any introductions here. The Toronto Maple Leafs first-round draft selection in 2023. Is just he is that dog. He doesn't have the dog in him. He is the dog. Incredibly intense, really good overall offensive player, good defensive work rate. He can play up and down a lineup wherever you plug him in. He will do a really good job. Ethan Goetz is another pretty physical winger for this team. He was a Tampa Bay Lightning second round selection in 2023. Riley Height of the Minnesota Wild, who went in the second round in 2023, is also a really skilled, great playmaker, especially on the power play. He's a very capable piece. Tanner Howe, again, got that dog in him. He was a Pittsburgh Penguins second-round selection this past draft, and there's a reason he was the captain of the Regina Pats in his draft year. He's a good leader, really smart player, plays with intensity. He's great around the net front, really gritty guy going forward. Jet Luchenko got the NHL minutes early on this season before being sent back to the Guelph Storm. Really good, pacey two-way player, great defensively, decent playmaking going forward. He's going to bring a lot of pace and intensity and pro habits to this lineup. Porter Martone, of course, the 2025 eligible, is all skill, really creative, very physical, can be a bit too physical, but too violent at times. And at other times, he just isn't physically implicated at all. There's a level of inconsistency there with the physical habits, but really skilled. He should be on this team. He's going to be a great fit. Gavin McKenna, prospective first overall selection in the 2026 NHL draft, plays for the Medicine Hat Tigers in the WHL, and he's elite. We've seen him at the U18 championships dominate. He would have broken the record for most points ever put up at that tournament if it hadn't been for James Hagens breaking it in that same tournament this past April and May. Bradley Nadeau is playing in the AHL for Carolina's affiliate, and he's all skill, wicked shot, decent defensive habits, really, really smart, fantastic player, should be on this roster for sure. Luca Pinelli, perhaps a bit of a surprise on the forward side here, especially ahead of players like Michael Misa and Tij Iginla and Beckett Sennecke. A lot of names were left off of this lineup. Michael Hage, so many players, but Luca Pinelli is a captain in the OHL. He's a good leader, plays with intensity, and has a wicked shot as well. I don't think will crack the final lineup here, even though he's one of my personal favorites to have watched in the past three seasons in the OHL. But I'm happy for him personally to have cracked this lineup. But I don't think that he's going to actually make the roster come late December. Carson Rakoff, Seattle draft pick just over a year ago, really skilled, good handling. He's been combining so nicely with Porter Martone so far this season. With the Steelheads, he could also be a player that ends up on the same line as Martone at this tournament with that existing chemistry. Callum Ritchie's perhaps the best defensive forward on this lineup for Team Canada. Fantastic. I think he could have also stayed in the NHL this season, would have been a decent enough player for the Colorado Avalanche. Really good playmaker, highly intelligent, and he's going to fit in wherever he plays in the lineup and going to do a really good job at it. Matthew Wood and Braden Yeager are the final two players on this lineup. It's a mouthful. There's a lot of names here. Canada has yet to really slim down the roster, as Sweden has, as we'll see in the final segment. But Matthew Wood, really good shot, decent playmaking, good hands, really smart player. The skating isn't the strongest, but he's been really taking off this season with Minnesota in the NCAA after transferring from UConn, and he's been looking really good there so far. And Braden Yeager, of course, of the Winnipeg Jets, who was involved in that big 1-for-1 trade with Rutger McGroarty in the offseason, being moved on by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, really good shot, decent defensive habits, flashes of playmaking ability. He can fit in anywhere. So it's a very versatile lineup. They can kind of plug and play wherever they want to, and really find pockets of chemistry between players to find those line combinations. There's less of a super clear, like, these are the top line guys, they're second line guys, they're the third and fourth line guys. But of course, the spots still have to be won here at camp. But that wraps up this first segment with Team Canada. That was a bit of a mouthful. In the second one, we'll be looking at the United States, who have a slightly slimmer roster so far. And I'll be breaking down how they are looking. And I believe it's also like almost a finalized roster at this point. They only have to trim it down by, I believe, 3 players. So Canada's brought an absolute boatload of guys. The USA have already trimmed it down. So we'll break down that roster in the next segment. But first, a quick word from our sponsors here over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need all in one place to bet on the NFL. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Whether you want to take your swings on the NFL or on European football with the Champions League going on in full force now, or perhaps you prefer tennis or golf, or if you're listening to this podcast, just maybe hockey is your sport of choice. Whatever it may be, FanDuel has something for everyone. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's keep this episode rolling here with the USA U20 roster for the World Junior Championships. Starting off in goal, the three players that we have. So the three players that and unless an injury comes up, are going to be the ones being brought to the tournament by the States are Trey Augustine of Michigan State, a Detroit Red Wings selection in the second round in 2023. Fantastic goaltender. He's been a rock for Michigan State and a big part of the reason that they were so overperforming to expectations last season, and he's been just as good this year. Hampton Slukinski is a really interesting goaltending prospect of the Los Angeles Kings. He plays for Western Michigan in the NCAA, also 19-year-old. All the goaltenders here are 19 years old. And also Sam Hildebrandt, who's undrafted, but plays for the Barrie Colts in the OHL. Those are the three netminders brought to this tournament by the United States. Moving forward to the blue line, we've got Zeev Buium, of course, of the Minnesota Wild, who fell to 11th overall, plays fantastic hockey for Denver, a great two-way defenseman. He's so slippery in tight and is just as good at preventing chances against as he is in creating them offensively. He's a really versatile defenseman that I think will be leading the line in many ways, especially on the power play for this team. EJ Emery, really physical, really mobile, physical freak of a defenseman who plays for the New York Rangers. Just a really solid physical guy who will play really good defensive minutes. Even if he just ends up on that third pairing, he is a really good shutdown piece and also has a basis of breakout ability to then send the puck up the other way, even though he's not going to be overly involved in the offensive zone. Blake Fiddler is perhaps a surprising invite here for Team USA as not only a 2025 draft eligible, but a draft eligible playing in the CHL, a non-USA hockey boy here with Blake Fiddler. And it's really a testament to just how good he's been for the Edmonton Oil Kings in the WHL. And he was as well at the Hlinka Gretzky tournament for USA and at the CHL top prospects game against the NTDP. He has shown wherever he's played, really physical, elite level transition defender, great skater, has a decent level of handling ability moving forward as well. Really versatile guy. I'm hoping he's not going to be on the outside looking in for this tournament. I would love to see him really get some minutes, but time will tell. We shall see. Paul Fisher also cracked this lineup. He's an Oilers prospect who plays for Notre Dame in the NCAA, as did Drew Fortescue, who plays for Boston College. He was another Rangers draft selection, another good defensive piece. Logan Hensler made the lineup, another draft eligible here for the 2025 class. He's mobile. He's solid. He will do what he's asked to do. He's not overly flashy with the puck on his stick. We'd love to see him try a little bit more, explore his toolkit from a scouting perspective. But in terms of what USA wants from their defensemen and among the draft eligible talents on the American side this year, I think Logan Hensler makes a ton of sense for this lineup. He's going to be really solid and reliable while also bringing the high-end level of mobility to just bring some calm to tense situations. Cole Hudson's also an invite to this camp. He's a Boston University player, of course, and a Washington Capitals draft selection this past year. He's not quite as dynamic as his older brother Lane Hudson is, but he's a really good offensive defenseman, and he's especially a player that can really solve complex situations in the offensive zone and bring an air of calm to them. He's often the outlet to calm things down when play becomes contested in the offensive zone, and to just make a play and pass the puck into space to a teammate and just be able to kind of reset. He's a really important player in that regard in the offensive zone. Adam Kleber, one of my favorites from that 2024 draft class, was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres. A really big, physical, shutdown defenseman who skates really nicely and is a smart breakout passer, a little bit like EJ Emery is, but he's certainly reliable as well in the breakout. He's not a player that just yeets the puck away from him as soon as he encounters pressure. He can play through some pressure on top of embodying the pressure on the defensive side of things. Aaron Manishin has also cracked this lineup, a Dallas Stars draft pick and a Boston College right shot defenseman. decent offensively. If he cracks the lineup, he could play a couple reps as a second power play quarterback. He's a decent puck mover. Defensively, a little bit limited, but the offensive creativity and the chemistry he already has with some of the players in this lineup, I think, will help him a lot. The final blue liner here is Colin Ralph of the St. Louis Blues, a St. Cloud State from the NCAA defenseman. And he's big. I don't know if he's going to crack this lineup at the end of the day, but if he does, he can play some decent minutes down the lineup. Now, the forwards, we're down to the actual goal scorers. And speaking of goal scorers, Cole Yzerman, of course, is on this lineup. The 18-year-old Boston University sniper and Islanders draft pick from this past draft, I believe he went 20th overall to the New York Islanders, is a fantastic goal scorer, a wicked shot, probably one of the best shots, if not the best shot, that's going to be present at this tournament. And still a lot around the goal scorer, and that still needs to develop. So I wouldn't be shocked if Yzerman is used in a bit of a depth scoring capacity with some very strategic deployment with offensive zone faceoff starts, a lot of power play minutes, and really kind of doubling down on that trigger man component in his game. Trevor Connolly is also going to be here. Fantastic skater, great rush attacker of the Vegas Golden Knights, who's playing at Providence College in the NCAA. Really dynamic player who can break games open in both directions at times. So he can be a bit inconsistent. It was his really thoughtless major penalty that lost the USA the gold medal at the U18 World Championships back in May against Team Canada. So he's a player where you win some, you lose some with, but overall the net is a clear positive. Austin Bernevik could be a good depth piece here for Team USA, an Anaheim Ducks prospect. James Hagens, of course, is a big name here, the only draft-eligible forward on this lineup for Team USA, and he is dynamic as anything. Such a great puck handler, really great puck rusher, great playmaker, decent goal scorer, a lot to love. He's going to be contending for first overall this season, and I'm very happy he'll be present at this tournament. Then we have the combination of Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault. No need for introductions. Two of the best USA junior players from the last 5 years. Just fantastic chemistry with Leonard being the power forward, the goal scorer, all the grit, all the intensity, and Perreault being the super high IQ playmaking facilitator. They work so nicely together. Oliver Moore of the Chicago Blackhawks is going to bring a lot of that pace and some defensive responsibility as well. Danny Nelson, also some defensive responsibilities there. He's another Islanders prospect. Chris Pelosi of the Boston Bruins, good depth piece. AJ Spellis, he can bring that power game from a depth role, really just great north-south speed. He plays the game of hockey like he were a linebacker, and I believe he was a running back as well for a long time playing football before he committed to hockey as his sport of choice. Teddy Stiga, great playmaker, really high-paced guy who also has a lot of chemistry with some players on this lineup, whether it be Cole Yzerman or James Hagens. Brendan Svoboda, another Boston University player and a San Jose Sharks prospect, is going to be an invite here, as will Carey Terrance of the Erie Otters in the OHL, a favorite of USA Hockey. Joey Willis, who is a great defensive player and has really been exploring his goal scoring this season. He went on a massive streak of scoring like 9 goals in 4 games recently. So some really good value there in just about all 3 zones. He's very versatile. And last but not least, we have last year's NTDP captain, Brody Zemer. I love this player. He brings energy. He brings leadership. He's a Buffalo Sabres prospect who plays with the University of Minnesota this season. This is a good lineup. There's a lot to like here. I think USA is going to be very competitive at this tournament, but curious to see what your thoughts are of the lineup. In the final segment, we'll be breaking down the Swedish roster, but first, a quick message from our sponsors over at Prize Picks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. PrizePicks has invented the flex play, which means that you can cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. PrizePicks puts the members first, so all withdrawals are fast, secure, and safe. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. You don't even need to win to receive your $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Do you think Connor McDavid can score over 0.5 goals this week? Austin Matthews even more than that? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this hockey season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Just download the app and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code LOCKEDONNHL. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, let's wrap up this show naming off so many names that I can barely keep up. But these are some very interesting lineups, and I'm very curious to hear about your opinion in the comments. Which of these three you think will be the favorite? Which do you think could be the dark horse to win the tournament? I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. I think personally, I really liked the USA lineup. I have some frustrations with the Canada lineup. I think that if they brought players like Tij Iginla, like Michael Misa, like Beckett Sennecke, like Zayne Parekh, that there'd be a lot more dynamism in that lineup. And the World Junior Championships are chaotic hockey. There's always some limited amounts of chemistry in those lineups. And I think that the better team on paper usually wins the game. But that said, of course, you do need some players to insulate them. You need some checking lines. I just think that perhaps the balance of those two sides could have been a bit more favorable on the skill side for Team Canada. But let's jump into Sweden's roster because it might be a dark horse to win. There's a lot to like here. Let's start off in goal here with Marcus Gidloff, New York Islanders prospect, really solid goaltender. Melvin Strahl, who's been playing some good hockey with the Youngstown Phantoms this season after being drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets. And Melker Thelin of IF Björklöven and a Utah Hockey Club selection. I'm not sure which team of Canada, USA, and Sweden has the goaltending superiority necessarily. I think Canada might. I think Carson Bjarnarsson's going to have a really strong tournament. I think that any of Carter George, Jack Ivankovic, and Scott Ratzlaff can really play some valuable minutes as well. So maybe give the edge to Canada on the goaltending side. But on defense, Axel Sandin Pellikka is going to be a true difference maker for Team Sweden. He has been dominant in the SHL this season. He is among the top scorers, period, in the entire league from the blue line as a very young blue liner. I mean, remember, this was a player drafted 17th overall just over a year ago, and now he's dominating the SHL from the blue line. He has a wicked shot. He's a fantastic puck mover, great skater, so deceptive, really good puck handler, great playmaker, so much to like offensively, and even going back defensively, he's worked a lot on being able to leverage his mobility and his sense of timing and his stick work to snuff out chances against the rush and also lower his base to gain leverage to not get boxed out as easily as he was in his draft year. He's going to be key for this team. Tom Willander is going to bring a lot of defensive worth as well from the blue line, also on the right side. The Boston University player and Vancouver draft pick from that same 2023 draft class. He went, I believe, 11th overall that year. He went ahead of Sandin Pellikka. A bit more defensive leaning, but a great skater as well. A lot to like. With those two right-shot defensemen, you have one clear offensive leaner and one clear defensive leaner, which I think will complement each other quite nicely. Rasmus Bergqvist of the Montreal Canadiens and Sollefteå has cracked this lineup as well. Leo Gustafsson of Timrå IK and the Nashville Predators is on this lineup as well, as is Wilhelm Holmqvist, who I haven't yet to watch, of HV71. So I'm curious to see how he's going to look. And last but not least, on the blue line, we have Theo Lindstein of the St. Louis Blues and Brynäs IF in the SHL. Pretty solid two-way player. He's not going to wow you with high-end dynamic actions or end-to-end rushes or even overly physical play in the defensive zone, but he's smart, he's solid, he's going to play his role pretty well as one of the senior players on this lineup. And there's also Axel Hurtig of the Calgary Hitmen and the Calgary Flames. So a very much a Calgary-based Swede here with Hurtig, who I think will be solid as a seventh defenseman or on the bottom pairing for Team Sweden. Moving on to the forward core, there's a couple players I want to highlight here, especially starting off with Victor Eklund of Djurgården IF in Hockey Allsvenskan, the big name in the 2025 NHL draft. He's not physically overly large, but he's dynamic, he is skilled, he's incredibly intense. His motor never stops, and he's been playing some fantastic hockey in Hockey Allsvenskan against pro competition. His second season playing in that league, and he's just entering. It's only his draft year now. He's very refined. He's polished, and really, really skilled with the puck on his stick. I am so excited to watch him at this tournament. Naming some undrafted players that cracked this lineup as well. At forward, we have Dennis Altern of Lexans IF, David Granberg of Luleå, and also Isaac Hedfisk of Luleå. So those are the three players in the forward core that have not received or that are not drafted in the NHL and that are not first-time draft eligibles like Victor Eklund is. And to wrap things up here, we still have a couple other big names. David Edstrom of the Nashville Predators, already been traded twice in the NHL, from being drafted in Vegas to being traded to San Jose to being traded again to Nashville. Has nothing to do with him being a divisive prospect. He's just very valued. He's a really good two-way player. He's a good net front presence. He's been playing some fantastic hockey with Frölunda in the SHL this season. He's going to be a top 6 player, I believe, for Sweden this season at this tournament. He's going to be really, really valuable. Linus Eriksson can play a slightly similar role as well as a two-way force in perhaps more of a bottom 6 capacity. He's a year younger than Edstrom is, but playing that kind of similar role in a depth capacity. Zeb Forsfjall of the Seattle Kraken and Sollefteå AIK is also on this lineup. He can bring some pace and some creativity from the wing. He's a bit undersized, certainly, but there's definitely something to look forward to going forward. Felix Nielsen, another good two-way center who's responsible, a decent skater, and a Nashville Predators selection yet again here. Otto Stenberg, a first-round selection of the St. Louis Blues in 2023, who's playing with the Malmö Redhawks in the SHL. He is certainly a player that could be a top liner for Sweden at this tournament. He's dynamic, he's skilled, he's creative with the puck on his stick, a really good playmaker. The shot threat is a bit hit or miss, but when he's in a Swedish jersey, he scores goals. He is a big impact player. He's always played his best hockey in the Tre Kronor yellow jerseys. So certainly an exciting player here for Team Sweden. We also have Herman Traff, a New Jersey Devils selection, an HD71 player, big physical power forward, can certainly do some good work in a depth capacity. Anton Wahlberg, one of my favorites from the 2023 draft and Buffalo Sabres selection, who plays with the Rochester Americans in the AHL right now. He's skilled, he's powerful, he's a big player, but a lot more on the skill side. He's not going to always necessarily go through opposition, but he's very good at getting around them, and he's combined really nicely with a lot of players in this forward core in previous international competitions. Oscar Voilette of the Carolina Hurricanes, a recent selection, has been lights out so far this season. He's been fantastic, and I think that he's going to be a really good middle 6 piece here for Team Sweden. And last but not least, we have Felix Ungersorum, a player that I believe should be a top liner at this tournament for Sweden. He also a Carolina Hurricane. He's playing with the Chicago Wolves in the AHL, and he brings a bunch of intensity, high-end intelligence, and some fantastic playmaking skill to boot. There's a lot to love here. One of my absolute favorites. I love watching him play. I think he's super valuable when he's on the ice, and I think that he's going to be great for Team Sweden at this tournament. So, as you can possibly tell, this was a long episode of diving into so many names. I mean, I believe I hit over 70 names in this episode. There's a lot of guys to run through, but let me know in the comments, what do you think of these lineups? Who do you think is going to win the tournament? I know I am super excited for it to kick off in Ottawa. I'm very, very excited for puck drop already. This episode has certainly sparked my excitement even more than it already was. And so if you're listening on YouTube, please leave us those comments, leave us a like and a review. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. We always really appreciate our everydayers. And for your second listen of the day, you can head on over to Locked On Sports Today, a 24-hour news show that brings you all the news you could possibly want to have access to in the sporting world. But that wraps things up here for me. I'm Sebastian High, USHL scout over at Elite Prospects, usually joined by Hadi Kalakesh. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope that you come back very, very shortly.